Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have a new vidya. And it is when anime fans go too far.
A momentous occasion took place. It was at a quaint chapel in Tokyo, Japan, where two individuals would get married, binding their lives together
Is this what I think it is? Is this the thing about the dude who married a robot or whatever?
and truly cementing their love. On this fateful day, in November of 2018, 35-year-old Akihiko Kondo would finally marry the love of his life, Hatsune Miku.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Yeah, this is gonna be a weird video. Anime attracts a lot of passionate people, and sometimes that passion isn't exactly expressed in the most constructive or positive way.
Yep.
In some cases, it can be something as small as constantly putting others down for the anime they like, and in other cases, it can be something much, much more destructive. But we'll get to that. Right now, let's just dip our toes into this pool of anime putrefaction. And of course, one of the most prominent examples of nasty behavior you can find from, well, many different anime communities is how some fans take their criticisms a bit too far. Now, there's nothing wrong with criticizing a creator or their story. Any narrative is liable for criticism. That's just how
True.
art works. And a lot of times, I also feel like when people express really extreme opinions, it's often just exaggeration for the purpose of a joke. That being said, I do feel like there are times when people are really not able to separate their emotions from the way they speak to other people. For example, in 2013, Hajime Isayama, the creator of Attack on Titan, received over 1,000 comments on his personal blog, many of which were worded, not in the nicest way.
On June 29th, I'm going to beat Hajime Isayama to death with a blunt instrument. I'm totally going to kill him. I won't get caught
Oh.
because the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Japanese police are incompetent.
Man, what a pleasant sounding individual. Then, of course, you have the other
Damn.
extreme where people love a series or character so much that, they just can't express it through words. More so through a grand gesture. And this is the mentality that brought us the now infamous Gojo figure incident, where a Jujutsu Kaisen fan took to TikTok to film herself, let's just say, using a certain female health product in a way it wasn't intended on a Gojo figure, which I will not be showing in this video, though if you want to watch it, and I'm not really sure why you'd want to, I'm sure you can find it. Ugh.
What the fuck?
God, after that, I feel like I need a palate cleanser. So let's talk about Death Note. I don't need to explain to anyone what Death Note is. I'm sure at least most of you are probably aware of it and its story.
Yeah, this is one of the first shows that I watched.
What's interesting, however, is the impact it's had on those who have read or watched it, namely middle school or high school students who have taken to creating their own Death Notes with the names of students and teachers that they don't like. The earliest report of this I can find is from 2005, where a student in Shenyang,
Oof.
China was caught by school officials with his own Death Note. And the crazy
Oof.
thing is that this is something that is still happening even in recent years. Death Notes have been found on students in Akron, Ohio, Pell City, Alabama, and Cordova, Tennessee. That one happening as recently as 2023. In general, I think Death Note just really appeals to, edgy school kids, and I imagine that this is just kind of their
Bro.
way of venting frustration.
I was so fucking edgy as a kid, man. Oh my god. It was actually cringe, bro. I was like the Sasuke Uchiha of my fucking school, bro. It was so dumb.
And anger. That being said, imagine being a teacher that has no idea what a white Yagami or L or Shinigami is. You see a notebook titled Death Note with the names of several students in it, yeah, that's gonna be kind of alarming. At the end of the day, though,
True.
all these examples are more so just people being petty, hateful, or just kind of weird. It's nothing that's really that out of the ordinary.
I will say it's a lot better they put it in a death note than actually put them to death. So if I'm the teacher, I'm just ignoring that death note is there, and I'm just saying, you know what? At least they writing it down in their notebook.
However, what happens when we begin to look beyond the veil of the ordinary and begin to gaze into the abyss?
Oh boy, here we go.
On May 23rd, 2019, a woman by the name of Yuka Takaoka had been looking through her boyfriend's cell phone. It was here that she had found pictures of him with another girl, and through a bout of jealousy and depression, Yuka decided that both her boyfriend as well as herself no longer belonged in this world. And so on this night,
Ooh.
Yuka Takaoka attempted to take the life of her boyfriend. Eventually, officers would arrive to their residence and arrest Yuka, but not before a now infamous photo was taken, which I can't show on screen, with her sitting next to her unconscious boyfriend in the residence lobby as she smoked a cigarette and was talking to someone on the phone. Now, I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on this event because it itself isn't anime related. However, oddly enough, the aftermath is. Eventually, this entire story would make its way online, and it was here that something strange started to happen. Yuka began to form a fan base of sorts, with many anime fans describing her as a yandere. For anyone
I'm not surprised. There's a lot of stupid people in the world that gather around a stupid ideal. I mean, we saw this with Luigi. I mean, people were doing protests for a murderer. And like whatever you agree with him or disagree with, the one thing you should agree on is the fact that nobody should be killed in cold blood, middle of the day. That's stupid. That's a retarded take. Okay? And if you get offended by the word retarded, there's a reason why I mark each one of my videos not for kids. Okay? Grow up.
who doesn't know, a yandere is an anime character type. The girl who is so possessive and obsessed with another individual it becomes downright destructive. Yuka's
Oh, I forgot this If you guys have not seen this stupid 100 girls that really, 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 really love you, oh my god. It's so fucking good. It's a perfect show that just it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's not to be fair, it has cracked animation sometimes. Like, we're talking some studio wit, Mappa fucking ridiculous animation on some scenes for no reason. It's so good in the pop culture references in this show hooked me in. 'Cause like at first, when I was just getting back into anime, this is one of the shows that I picked up and I was like, this kind of looks like an easy, I don't have to pay attention, just let it play type thing. And boy, was I wrong. It is so good.
violent crime, combined with her very conventionally attractive appearance, had many likening her to that of a real life yandere, with people even making fan art of her.
So you're saying she got too deep in the sauce. So it's like a Joker situation where because like the original actor for the Joker in the Dark Knight series killed himself because they say that he was so in tuned and intertwined with that character that it eventually drove himself mad.
And like, I get it, memes will always exist. But to me, it feels like there's a large disconnect here. This is a real life tragedy revolving around someone who seems to have very serious issues, and yet many people seem to only be capable of viewing it through the lens of a popular anime trope. It gets to the point that it just feels like there's a large disconnect from reality. Though nothing illustrates this better than the marriage of Akihiko Kondo and Hatsune Miku. Akihiko grew up a bit of a social outcast. As a teenager,
Who would have guessed?
Teenager, he tried to talk to girls, but every time he did, they would reject or demean him. And this would continue all the way into his adulthood until one day at his job, he would be relentlessly humiliated by two women to the point of a full on nervous breakdown. After this, Kondo would have to take sick leave for his mental health, and it was during this time.
What? So he got bullied by two women, and nobody told him to fucking stand up for himself? I mean, I don't know anything about this, like, this guy's history, right? I just know that he's the guy who married the robot or whatever. Uh, but huh? Like nobody just he didn't have a friend that called him up and just said, "Hey, listen, bro, when you gonna stop letting them treat you like shit?" Because like in almost every like anime, even ones where like the guy is like purposely like the MC is like purposely mistreated, the guy still has like some sort of noble side. So I don't know like what anime that he watched that was like, you know what? Fuck this shit.
Time that he would find Hatsune Miku, the virtual anime pop star. Kondo has stated that during this period of his life, Miku basically saved him and made him feel whole again.
Miku lifted me up when I needed.
This is why you have friends. If I were to call my brother up and say, "Hey, I give up on real women. I'm gonna marry a fucking Vocaloid robot doll thing," my brother would fly here and personally show up at my door, smack me in the face, and tell me to get my fucking life together. The fuck? Like nobody in his life checked him and said, "Hey, this is not a healthy way to look at it. You need to fucking deal with your problems, not run away from them like some fucking little bitch." Like, come on, bro. Damn. And I do get it like that. Some people they don't got that instinct in them, right? They're not able to see the writing on the wall, and instead of walking away, they go through the bullies instead. Uh, so I get that, but that's why you find a support system. That's why you find somebody who can help you gain that confidence. Find a way. But this is just giving up. That's all it is. The Miku was just a fucking excuse for him to run away from his problems.
Needed it the most. She kept me company and
What
made
a
me feel
freak,
like I
bro.
could regain control over my life.
If it were to end there, this would just be an incredibly
Jeez.
wholesome story about an individual who was able to overcome mental trauma through his favorite hobby.
Now, this, that specific line right there, I can support that because people do tend to search for the things that they missed most when they grow up. That's why it's like very important you grow up in a household with a mother, with a father that are both good to you and good to each other because it creates a healthy balance. Without that healthy balance, you end up running through life chasing the shit that you fucking missed out on. It's popular reference in what is it? It's a J. Cole song where it's like Uncle Phil was like the only father that they ever knew. You know what I'm saying? For a lot of people, they relate to that. That's why that song is so fucking popular. Uh, but yeah, it's the same sort of concept. Like you could take a pop culture viewpoint and kind of make it part of your identity because you had no father to instill said identity to you from a young age. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that your identity it doesn't evolve because it does. I mean, we spend our entire teenage years looking for who we are, and some people even longer. Fuck, I spent till I was 25 trying to figure out who the fuck I was. it takes time, but I had nothing. I came from a broken home with nobody to guide me except for a few very fortunate years of my life. So after that, when I was on my own at 16, I spent from 16 to 25 on my own, making mistakes, making positive adjustments, making negative adjustments, trying to figure out where do I fit in this world? What do I want to do? And it took a long time, but when I finally got there, I had a plan and I started acting on it. And it took a massive weight off my shoulder. Now I'm just some guy who does YouTube, who works for a living, and has a dog over there currently taking a nap. She's tired. We've been out running around all day.
But it doesn't end there. Kondo then decided that he was actually in love with Miku, and so on that fateful day in November of 2018, Akihiko Kondo would marry his one true love, Hatsune Miku. And by Hatsune Miku, I mean this tiny plush of Hatsune Miku. Wow, she really is quite a looker, isn't she? The wedding itself was
What the fuck?
officially ordained. However, he did spend 2 million yen on a wedding ceremony at a Tokyo chapel, and even invited several of his co-workers as well as his mom and sister. They didn't show up, but who did show up was 39 strangers that just kind of heard about what was happening over social media, including 2 Japanese politicians, one of which was Taro Yamada, a member of the Japanese House of Counselors. Wow, no one told me this was going to be a fancy wedding. To this day, Kondo is still married to Miku, though the relationship has had a few bumps along the way. One of the ways that Kondo interacted with Miku was through a technology called Gatebox that allows fictional characters to, I guess, live as small holograms. In 2020, Gatebox was shut down, and thus so was Kondo's primary method of interacting with his wife.
So she died? What the fuck?
So it doesn't really matter, you know. He still has this giant custom-made doll, as well as the plushie married. He'll live. He'll live. The marriage between Kondo and Miku to this day is bizarre, but at the same time,
Part of me doesn't want to take this seriously at all. Like, there's a part of me that's like, he sets it all up for cameras and shit, and then he does it for like fucking 4 hours, however long they want to film him for. And then he just puts all the shit in a fucking closet and he's a normal dude. Like, I don't want to believe it. And I'm afraid because there's losers in every country, right? But I think Japan is especially weird because the losers are literally losers. I mean, shut in from society, which causes these unhealthy, like parasocial relationships with either a character or a VTuber or somebody um there was one that happened recently with Senna, Valkyrie, and Emiru and stuff. They were out filming, and this really creepy guy who was stalking them, and it was just a whole situation, right? So there are losers everywhere. And because nobody is there to rein them in and show them a different path, they choose these very peculiar, undermining, demeaning, and manipulative ways to get their feelings out to the world, and it's so fucking weird, man.
very least, we can say that in this scenario, no one's being physically harmed, which
Ah,
unfortunately is not something we can say about this next event. A story that,
course.
quite
Of
honestly,
course it gets
is
worse.
probably the most disturbing one I've talked about today.
My god, that hairline.
The case of Junji Matsumoto. Junji Matsumoto was 59 years old, had been unemployed for 40 years, and was living with his elderly parents in 2021. He had a
Loser.
fairly
Check.
easy, albeit lonely life. He lived off of his parents' pensions and savings and would spend most of his days watching anime, one of his favorite hobbies.
Fuck.
However, his cushy life
You know, he could have just fucking become a Reddit mod. That's what he could have done. I'm sure Reddit would have welcomed him with open arms.
would begin to crumble when his parents, both 80 plus years old, would become wheelchair bound and incapable of taking care of themselves. Many aspects of their lives required assistance from Junji, whether it was cleaning them, feeding them, or taking them to the bathroom. And this was something that Junji hated. All he wanted was his
So he hated the responsibility of being a human being? What the fuck?
old life back, where all he had to worry about was sitting down and watching anime. And eventually, it would get to the point that his parents' needs would cause him to snap.
During a good scene in an anime, my father repeatedly called for me to take care of him.
Because he complained about me, I killed him? What the fuck? Oh my god.
Because he complained about me, I killed him.
Shortly after, the same thing would happen to his mother, who had witnessed what Junji did to his father. Junji would
That's
then hide the
crazy.
bodies, taking his parents' bank cards and using the money to flee all the way to Kyoto, where he would finally be apprehended in a hotel parking lot.
I was gonna say that would never work. Like, the only thing he could have done was try to flee the country, but if you're a shut-in loser, then you definitely don't got a fucking visa to go anywhere else either because you have no aspirations in life.
After this, Junji Matsumoto would say something that I think puts everything into perspective.
Oh
I
boy.
wanted to
Escape from reality. Yeah, for fuck's sake.
escape from reality.
Every incident we've talked about today has a theme, and I think that theme is breaking from reality. And
From what I do know, there are definitely like majority of people they only see the good side of Japan. So I do think it is important that if you are looking to move somewhere, that there is also you have to consider the dark side of every place that you're looking to move to. Especially if you're wanting to make it permanent. I mean, it's one thing if you're there for like a work study or for school or whatever, and you just want to study abroad, that's a little bit different, right? But if you're thinking about making the full jump and committing to a certain place, you need to know each aspect of that society, right? So that is something like important if you're a foreigner. But if you're there, right, and you're born and raised there and whatnot, because every country has a dark side, right? Every country does. Don't let them fool you. There's no picture perfect country out there. Uh, so one thing I do notice with Japan is that socially it's 10 times harder compared to, say, America. Because America, everybody here is open and upfront with you, whether they lie to your face or they're telling you the truth, plain and simple. People here tend to speak their mind, even if they try to say it in a way that is either non-offensive or not quite the truth, right? People here are well, the best word for it is outspoken, right? In Japan, people are very much more like reserved, respectful. They're very closed off compared to most parts of the world, right? And I'm not saying that everybody's that way. I do know from uh, all the different videos that I've seen on Japan that the younger generation is a bit more open and talkative to, in general, people than their older, you know, older generation is. So I do know the culture is shifting a little bit, but there's still a massive problem with for instance, how Americans they're still like top I would say top 5 hardest working people on the planet, and we do 40-hour work weeks. In Japan, people are doing like 60, 80-hour work weeks, but they're not as productive as Americans. Why? Well, I could tell you why. A lot of the different jobs for a uh for a social custom, social norm, whatever it is, you spend a lot of extra time at work because it makes you look like you're hardworking. But that doesn't mean that you actually have to be doing anything. Because one of the YouTubers that I used to watch was an English teacher, and to essentially get high praises from the boss, he would be there. He would have all the work done that he needed to have done, whether it was grading papers, whether it was um, going over lessons for the next however many days, whatever the case may be. He also ran a YouTube channel. So what he would do is he would just sit there and he would edit his videos there in his classroom, and it would make it seem like he was doing a lot of productive work. But well, he was being productive, but not towards his work by any means. It was toward the YouTube channel that he was eventually going to take off from, and then that would be what he ends up staying with. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing, right? But there's such like a weird social undertone with Japan. I don't know about too many other countries. Because like I do know a decent bit about the UK. Like the UK, they're fairly reserved people there as well. Whereas like you can walk down the street in America and there's people will wave at you. They'll say hello. If you say hello to them, so on and so forth. Uh, that's where the outspokenness comes from, right? And people here, they tend to smile, they tend to laugh more. Whereas like in the UK, like yeah, people still smile and laugh, but they're a lot more reserved to you initially is the way that I would describe them, right? So like they're similar, but they're different at the same time. So Japan, I feel like it's a lot of the same way. Like they're very reserved but respectful, right? If you speak to them, they will try to speak to you. Maybe they won't, depending on, if you're a foreigner, they're probably going to be a little bit intimidated because a lot of them they don't like to try out their English, which again is another weird like it's not disrespectful, but it's just like you don't get better if you don't try, you know?
Anime brings out the best in a lot of people. It sparks a creative fire that can be expressed through things like art, animation, or cosplay. It can even
True.
inspire you to make better life choices. I mean, the movie Wolf Children is what inspired me to get my first job in college. Anime can benefit a lot of people, but it can also bring out the worst in certain people. There's many
I mean, this is how I got my work ethic, really. Because like my father always had good work ethic, but he was morally flawed man. And my mother, I don't really know too much about how intense her work ethic was, but she was a bit more morally good down the road than she was when I was younger. Um, so I guess you could say I got my morality from her, and I got the work ethic from him. Yet I hardly know either of them, compared to like how well I would know my aunt and my uncle, which is kind of weird considering I spent a fraction of the time with my aunt and uncle versus my own parents. It's a weird dynamic with that. But one of the things that truly set that work ethic off is a little show called Dragon Ball Z. 'Cause I had watched Dragon Ball, but I didn't really get all that into it until Dragon Ball Z came around and I met a character named Vegeta. and Vegeta was a morally bad guy. Easy to say, not really good when you want to blow up the planet and kill everybody's friends, right? Uh, but why that show became important to me was because I grew up watching Vegeta change year after year after year till eventually Dragon Ball Z was done running, and his moral conflicts also reminded me of my moral conflicts, and those types of things are healthy when approached with the right mindset. That's the tough part, right? Because if you don't have somebody there to rein you in and kind of say, "Hey, I'm glad you're inspired. I'm glad you're motivated. This is good, but don't push it further than that because that's now you're becoming unhealthy, right?" Um yeah, there has to be a disconnect between anime and reality. Like if you don't have that disconnect, one side ends up kind of not polluting, but well, I guess polluting kind of works in the situation. It kind of pollutes the other, and then eventually all you know is one thing, and that unhealthy balance is an easy way to ruin your life. I've seen people who are so stricken by reality that they cannot enjoy themselves. Like they've never known anything ideological in their fucking life. And I've seen it the opposite. I've seen people that are sucking down the goddamn what's that shit that Kanye's been sucking down? Was that that fucking what is that gas? That nitrogen gas or what's that uh brain gas. Uh what the fuck's that shit called? Um it was that shit that was like starting to go around before it got shut down. Um I don't know.
Individuals who don't see anime so much as a tool to refine their life, so much as a tool to escape from it. And that in and of itself isn't bad. I mean, after all, we need those little escapes from the cold, harsh world we
I
live
agree.
in. Anime, in some ways, is like a big warm blanket. It's comforting and makes you feel safe and happy. However, it becomes an issue when you want to make that blanket your entire reality. What I want to get
Yep,
across in this video is that
exactly what
I
I said.
think that everyone would benefit if they try to view anime as something to enrich their life as opposed to something that outright replaces it.
Yeah, you can enjoy anime and take lessons from it, but you have to apply those lessons. I think that's where a lot of people disconnect from it, right? You got to be able to understand the meaning of something and then say, "Hey, maybe I can apply this to my own life somehow." But you got to do it in a healthy way, you know? It's like if your escape from reality is watching some fucking harem show, right? Obviously, reality probably is never going to level up to that degree for you. But if the MC of that show, in order to protect all those females, manages to get up when he's battered and bloody and in a terrible situation and he continues to fight, there is a lesson of perseverance there. There's a lesson of getting up no matter how many times you've been knocked down in that moment. And if you pick up on that, the part that you need to focus on is his effort and not the draw of an unrealistic worldview.
It.
Damn, right at the end. Crazy. Yeah, there have been some interesting fans over the year. Make sure you go to Kitsune Anime, give them a sub, give them a like. That was a good video. I enjoyed that video. Obviously, you can see, maybe you can see, yeah. Behind me here, I have a backlog of shit I gotta get to. So that's gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, comment, do all the stuff. And without further ado, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.